Hello lovely friends, it is that time again. Welcome to the Buzzword reading vlog for February. I am starting this later because honestly, what is time? What is time? For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Buzzword Challenge, it is hosted by Kayla from Books and Lala. There are two different prompt categories. There is a Buzzword title prompt where you have to find a word within a title, and then there is a cover challenge. This month's Buzzword title prompt is keyboard keys, which essentially means you have to find a title that features one of the keys that you would see on a keyboard. Obviously, there are a lot of keys, so you could go the punctuation route if you so wished. But ideally, the point of this challenge is to pick things like delete or escape or return or shift, which, you know, makes it a little bit more challenging. And I found exactly one book with the keys on my keyboard. Let's hope it works for me, because I don't have any backups. So for this particular challenge, I am planning on reading A Shift in the Water by Patricia Eddy, which I believe is a paranormal story. So fingers crossed. I'm generally okay with paranormal stories, but you never know. And then for the Buzzword cover challenge, it is a silhouette. So there has to be a silhouette on the cover. And I actually have a few options for this. However, the Amazon First books this month included No One Is Safe by Ellie Marney, which is the follow-up to the book that I read in the first Buzzword vlog for this year. I think I'm just going to read that. One, it's an early release. Two, I'm seeing the author next month. And let's just keep this thing rolling because I'm being a bit of a completionist. So I haven't quite decided yet what I'm going to read tonight. It's obviously going to be one of these two things, but it's been a week. I need to go have a shower, I need to eat some dinner, and I will be making that decision throughout that process. Apparently I did not hit record. What is going on with me? Anyway, hi. I am about 50% of the way through A Shift in the Water by Patricia Eddy. This is a paranormal romance. We start off in the perspective of Cade, who is a werewolf. He is attacked by the daughter of the woman that his father, who was a wolf alpha, killed for reasons, and the daughter is trying to basically take revenge on his father's pack and all the remaining members of the pack, including Cade. And she basically kidnaps him, drugs him, traps him in his wolf body. She's an elemental. Traps him in his body. Why am I getting notices on my phone? Easily distracted. And then tortures him for a very, very long time. We also meet Mara, who is a nurse, and she's unwell, but they can't seem to find a cause for why she's unwell. Basically just her red blood cells keep dropping, but it's not leukemia, it's not any kind of blood cancer or blood illness that anyone knows, but basically she is progressively getting worse. Transfusions help initially, but that basically she's been told at this rate you need a transfusion every few days, and eventually even that's not going to work. And so she's getting ready for the end of her life. She's 31 at this stage, and one thing she loves to do is to swim. And it's as she's coming back from swimming, even though she's not well and she really probably shouldn't be swimming, that Cade has managed to escape from his prison through a series of events that happen. And he sees her, his wolf, because he's very much a wolf at this point, just goes, mine. Trusts this woman implicitly, hides in her car, and ends up going home with her. She recognizes that he has been mistreated, that he is malnourished, that he is likely going to die, and seeing a similarity in their situations, she's not willing to turn him over to animal control and basically an impersonal death. And so she tries to nurse this wolf back to health, and along the way he ends up being able to transform back into a human. We have been getting hints that Mara is some kind of elemental with an affinity for water. She doesn't really know this or even believe it when people suggest it to her, but then she's confronted by a werewolf in her bed, so her understanding of the world is tested. And at this point he has just returned to his home and found out that his pack, who he thought had died in the attack when he was taken, a number of them are alive, and that's where we are. I'm enjoying it. Like, it's not the best thing I've ever read, but it's also, you know, I'm compelled to keep reading now. I'm invested. Except now I'm also cold, and this is the first time I have felt cold and felt like I need to put on something long sleeve in a while. So it's a bit weird because I know as soon as I put something on with long sleeves, I'm going to get too hot. We're going to try something long sleeve. I will probably hate it, but I will continue reading the book and I'll have an update for you soon. So I finished A Shift in the Water, and honestly I just kind of feel very meh about the whole thing. Like, it's fine. It's very much what you would expect from a paranormal romance. So here's the thing, like, you have your two main point of view characters, but then you get random point of views from other characters, which is also fine. Like, I don't have an issue with that, except, you know, our villains are villains, and yes, there's a reason why one of them is extremely mad, but they have therapy for that. Mara's sister needs to go talk to somebody about losing her mother, and not trying to kill everyone, including her own sister, because she's mad. And the whole time I was just kind of reading the final sort of fight sequence, just like, you are literally killing your sister because you're unhappy with who she has fallen in love with. Seek help. Seek help. And I mean, she probably wouldn't have, but you know, she doesn't survive the book anyway. Not that's a spoiler. She's the villain of the piece. And also, it feels very caricature because you don't get enough information. You don't get enough information in the backstory for it to feel like a connection, like she's literally just a villain. And I don't care about female villains, that's fine. You can have a female character be the villain. I was like, talk to somebody about your problems. That is done. I'm going to see if I can find any book recommendations, because I've not thought about this yet. So I'm back. I have attempted to find 3 books with keyboard key titles. The first one being Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole, with escape being the key in the title. And this one is a novella-length romance about 2 people who meet online and then fall in love in real life. And it is delightful and charming and features disability rep and is just delightful. I have not read this in years, and this is probably a good one to come back to. It's like just over 150 pages long. There is Escape Velocity by Jess Anastasi, which is a sci-fi romance that I read last year, maybe perhaps as part of a try chapter, or maybe a Buzzword blog, I can't remember. Anyway, it is set on a spaceship. It is the romance between one of the doctors on board the ship and a former soldier of the ship who was a prisoner of war, who they've recovered and found, and he's brought back onto the ship, and they were childhood friends. She basically helps him to get healthy again, and then they fall for one another in the middle of an intergalactic war, as you do. Unsurprisingly, Rebound Control being our keyboard word, by Jodi. My favourite book of the year so far. The book that I bawled my eyes out from start to finish. It is a queer hockey romance. It features a character who is going through the process of being diagnosed with ADHD, falling in love with a firefighter who lost his husband in a fire and is finding love again for the first time. And these 2 men are beautiful, beautiful men. No red flags. None. Just beautiful people falling in love with one another and supporting each other unconditionally and standing up for one another and just treating each other with respect. So yes, that's why I cried my eyes out during that book. I might read the next book tomorrow. Stay tuned. I don't know. Hi everyone, I am back. We are going to be reading No One Is Safe today for the second Buzzword prompt for the cover challenge. I'm very, very excited. You will have seen that I've been out and about. I left my apartment. That's a minor win. And that was to catch up with my in real life book club friends, where we don't actually set a book and we just talk about books, because that's the kind of people that we are. I think that's the true sign of a book club, is when you're just talking about all the things that you've read. In our case, lots of bonkers books. I also did go to the local kids bookstore that is very close to where we were meeting up. I grabbed a book for my niece, which is Find Me If You Can, which is one of those books where you have to cut out the little red cellophane piece and use it to find all of these different things in the picture. She loves these. She has one that she has one that's sort of similar. I thought she'd really enjoy this one. I actually just gave it to her tonight and she loved it. It was so fun to sit with her and explore the book with her. She'll probably destroy it in 5 seconds, but that's okay. I also saw Pocket Bear by Catherine Applegate there, which is a novel that I've been meaning to read because I really enjoyed Willowdean last year, so I'm very, very keen to try Pocket Bear. And Ivy and Bearlock Holmes, The Case of the Missing Flower. This is by Christina Litton. I did read this last night. It is a graphic novel, but it also has puzzles and maps and things that you have to solve, and mazes and things like that that you have to solve inside the story. And obviously it is a bit of a kid's take on Sherlock Holmes. This I read last night. I really enjoyed it. But today is all about No One Is Safe by Ellie Marney, which is a serial killer book set in the 1980s in New York City. So I'm very excited given everything that happened to Simon at the end of the previous book. I can't wait to find out what happens next. Okie dokie. I am just on 50% of the way into No One Is Safe by Ellie Marney, which is a thriller. It is set 5 years after the None Shall Sleep series. So the thing with this book is it's a start of its own series, and we're following a character, Simon, who has no memory of who he is. He just knows that he woke up after being dragged out of a river in Guatemala 5 years earlier. He doesn't know his name. His clothing had Simon on it and he feels like that's a good fit. He has no memory. He's still dealing with headaches and migraines and things as a result of basically having his skull stitched back together. However, if you have read the None Shall Sleep trilogy, which is a young adult series that Ellie Marney wrote, which was set in the 1980s and follows 2 young people involved in an FBI investigation associated with a serial killer, a teenage serial killer called Simon Gustafson. This is Simon. I think I was sending Izzy messages because she sounded interested in the story, because I know that Simon is a serial killer because I've read the whole series. Now you guys do too. He doesn't know that, and he's working with a private investigator who lives in his building. It's 1987. He doesn't know who he is. He's come back to the US, where he was a wanted criminal prior to all of this, because he's trying to figure out who he is. And she is a second point of view character, and through her eyes we see some of the peculiarities of Simon's behavior, which on its own makes this a really interesting book. I just happen to have that other information coming into it. So if you came into the book as a new person with no context of who Simon is, I think you would 100% be fine, because we're going to get that reveal, and the little breadcrumbs that are being planted are things to intrigue a reader who is new to the character. So I think that's fine. I think you can read it wholly on its own. And interestingly enough, the marketing on this is not really clear, saying that this is a direct follow-on from the previous series anyway. So I don't know what's going on there. There might be more direct correlation later on. Essentially, Simon is in New York. He's trying to find his past. Nomi is investigating the kidnapping of an 8-year-old girl, the daughter of a prostitute, who is basically being blackmailed into a job that she doesn't want, and that's why the local mob have taken her daughter. And Nomi, who used to be a cop but is no longer a cop, is looking into it, knowing that the bad guys that she's investigating are really bad guys. Simon and Nomi's paths cross in the apartment building. He ends up helping her because he has a varied skill set, including he's very good at languages. He doesn't know how he's good at languages, he just knows that he is, and he can translate things. And he makes a good bodyguard because he can be scarily detached, which is very different to the normal persona that she kind of sees. Like, it's so well done. Like, Ellie Marney is just really, really good at writing these stories. So we know we're inching closer to sort of both Nomi and Simon maybe figuring out what's going on. It feels very Dexter-ish in that obviously Simon is going to be the center of this story, where previously he was the antagonist of the series, so now he's going to be like an anti-hero, maybe, possibly, I don't know, of this series. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. So I want to keep reading, and I'll probably update you now when I'm done. As it turns out, I completely forgot to film my thoughts at the end of reading the book. It is still the same day though. But I went, oh yeah, I'll film my thoughts in a couple of minutes, and it's like 4 hours later, which I suppose could be worse. So I finished No One Is Safe. I really, really enjoyed it. And the one thing I kept thinking about it is because Ellie Marney is primarily a YA author, the way the story is written, it feels like a YA book in that it's very compulsively readable in that sense for a thriller. But it's not a YA book at all. The content is not a YA book. And there are times where it's quite graphic, and it is very gory because we are dealing with someone who's got absolutely no qualms about cutting people up because he is a serial killer. And it's funny because, you know, for the majority of the book, he doesn't know who he is, and he doesn't know what his past is. And we know that he's going to find out in this book. And more than likely, my thoughts through the book was that Nomi was going to figure out, she'd somehow find out who he was, what his past was, that he was a convicted serial killer. Even though I knew that was going to happen and I kind of had figured out the way that it would happen, it was still so good. It was so good. And there is something about an anti-hero. And I was reading the author's note at the end of the book, and Ellie was saying how he was the villain of the previous trilogy. He was the antagonist, he was the villain, and yet he's one of the characters that people come up and say, we really like him. Not glorifying the fact that he's a serial killer and he's killing people, but as a character, he's very fascinating and interesting to read about. And it is so true. He is such an interesting character to read about. And I think this book really highlights that, because now we're flipped and he is the anti-hero of this book. He's still doing terrible things, but he's kind of doing terrible things to save people in this one, but he's still having to fight his nature. And also the whole thing is just really fascinating because it is a historical book set in the 1980s. So there's a lot of historical context where, you know, some of the language is not language that we would use now, but 100% in 1980s it would be used. That is culturally relevant and culturally significant to the time period. So it was like, it was just good. It was good. And you see Nomi and Simon get to a point in their relationship where there is this weird attachment that they have to one another. You know, Nomi feels uncomfortable knowing what she knows about Simon. She feels uncomfortable that she's like, hang on a second. There are times when I'm reacting really inappropriately to him because he kills people. But there's also this sense that, you know, Simon has had that 5 years of not knowing who he is, and he's not sure who he wants to be yet moving forward. So like, I like that dynamic. That's really fun. And he's obviously going to spend hopefully the future books working alongside Nomi, and I am here for it. I'm really here for it. And next weekend there is another book event and Ellie is going to be there, so I'm really excited because I'll be able to actually go and say, hey, I've read it, it's great. Like, because it hasn't released yet and it doesn't release until March. I had such a good time. Like, really enjoyed it, and I'll be getting a physical copy of it because my goodness, I had a good time. Okay. And for all that I've kind of been very enthusiastic and high energy in talking about this book, I know I would normally give a couple of recommendations, but I'm actually not feeling all that great, and I desperately need to put the air conditioner on, and I just don't actually have the capacity to think of 3 books with silhouettes on the cover. So I'm going to skip this one. Apologies, but we do what we must because I need to go lie down. Thanks for watching this vlog. I am very happy that it ended on a successful note in terms of a book that I really enjoyed reading. That just always makes my day, honestly. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of these books or are you planning on picking any of them up? Feel free to let me know. Otherwise, if you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a city skyline emoji to let me know you're here. I hope that wherever you're around the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.